school and work, waiting for some fun while my boss acts like a jerk. Pro show afternoons, midnight sketch can't come too soon. Afternoon and sketch can't come too soon. But at night I'm filled with dread. I know just what I'll do instead. Come on and follow me. It's time you see for Lorn and Apollo. Time to laugh and learn. Come feel the burn of what the fandom was. What random fun doesn't escape? Isn't it great? Late night with Lorn and Apollo.
Good evening, everybody. How you doing? Welcome to Tuesday night. Before we jump into things straight away tonight, I wanted to address a couple of questions that I actually saw in the chat. Let me see if I can find it again. Here it is. Sean was asking, why does Lorn have a Lower Decks uniform? And the answer for that is twofold. First of all, Tuesday is my busiest day when I don't have a lot of time, and I had to render the thumbnail quickly. And so it got the gist of what I was trying to get across. I did not know that was a Lower Decks uniform because I have not seen Lower Decks. So those are the main two reasons why. I had to get it done quickly, and I didn't know that was a Lower Decks uniform. There's another question in here from Cape Canaveral asking, why is Cartoon Lorn in the thumbnail so nervous? And the answer for that is because I'm wearing a red shirt, and Apollo's wearing the Gold Command uniform. So that just seemed appropriate to the situation for me. Anyway, Kevin, I kind of sprung this topic on you without a whole lot of warning, and it was largely because a couple of nights ago after we got off the stream, I ended up hanging behind with Martin for a little bit, and we talked for quite a bit about Star Trek, and I realized that whenever we do talk about Star Trek, people in the chat seem to get excited about it. We didn't have any guests tonight. It was going to be just you and me. That kind of lends itself to a long-form conversation, so I thought, what the heck? We may as well do it.
Let's do it. I can talk about Star Trek all day, every day. So this was a very welcome treat when I finally saw your message. I was like, let's rock.
Yeah, I don't have any particular direction or theme to the conversation that we'll have. I just thought, we could just kind of spitball on it. We can talk about Trek past, Trek present, what little is left of it apparently, and what we think can be done in the future. So I thought that might be a little fun. We do have a super chat here to begin with from Juliet, greeting us as she normally does with £2 sterling, saying, "Morning late night live with Lorn and Apollo and chat." Hello to you, Juliet. Thanks for being here. Appreciate your wrenching duties. You always do excellent work. Sir, what have you been up to? I haven't talked to you much today. I assume that you had a fun-filled day.
It wasn't too bad. A lot of the former employees have been seeking their W-2s, so it's been a lot of people angrily emailing me like it was my fault that they don't work there anymore, and then me telling them, this is how you do it, and then me going, you know what, I'm just going to send it to you. So it's just, for a little bit there, I'm like, how many times can I have this conversation? And I was like, I don't care.
Easy to just deal with it than try and spoon feed and walk them through it. I get it.
So I watched, I had a friend of mine come over, watched a couple Puppet Master movies, and then before I jumped on here, I started watching Chuck Norris Eye for an Eye.
Okay. Pro has been getting a lot of mileage out of his latest AI clip. I don't think he made this one. I'm sure he found it somewhere, but it is Chuck Norris behind Darth Vader on the railing at Cloud City, and he roundhouse kicks him over the side, and Vader goes, "No!" It's actually a really good clip, but Pro has been abusing it a little bit. I'm sure you're gonna be seeing it in the near future. There was one other comment that I saw in here. Where was it? It was Angel Hickson saying, been playing that video, These Clones Ain't Loyal, every day since Pro's live stream. It's stuck in my head. The same has happened to my son. He's been bopping around the house with his headphones on, and I've been hearing him screeching at the top of his lungs, These clones ain't loyal. And then he popped into my head, into my room and said, I just wanted to tell you that I've been playing it nonstop for like the last hour. It's like, I know, I've heard you. But that is kind of what it does. It does get stuck in
It
your
just gets
in
stuck right in there.
I
It's just,
really that guy AI Emma Jedi has done lots of these kind of clips. He did some that were Michael Jackson themed. He did a whole bunch that were all reggae themed. But Base Windu is my very favorite of his so far, and I can't wait to see what he does with it next. I think it's going to be great. Um, our first story for tonight is this one. Hollywood production collapse. Layoffs are just getting started by our own Culture Casino. In a previous article, I penned a worrying set of numbers. Los Angeles shoot days plunged to 19,694 in 2025. These are the lowest levels outside the pandemic year. That is down from over 36,000 in 2022. Soundstage occupancy is stuck in the low 60s after years of 90% plus. Employment in the sector has dropped sharply, with tens of thousands of jobs gone as a result of Hollywood layoffs. Meanwhile, studios are laying off hundreds. Sony last week, merging into debt-laden giants and replacing expensive late-night shows with syndicated reruns. In the case of Stephen Colbert's cancellation, it led to a lucrative deal with Byron Allen. He's actually paying CBS to put actual funny comedians in that time slot. The post-pandemic, post-strike hangover is brutal. The forced diversity initiatives pushed by the Hollywood progressives were costly, not just in talent pools being drained, but by an insurgence of unqualified candidates for representation's sake. Streaming wars drove massive overproduction that audiences and advertisers could not sustain. Of course, no one asked for or even indicated they wanted anything being made. Now the correction is here. Fewer starts, more consolidation, and strategic restructurings that mean real people losing real jobs. This happened in all industries, not just entertainment. Gaming, Hollywood, marketing, and even accounting. Hires made with artificially full coffers were never going to be sustainable, so rot set in at all levels. The Paramount Skydance Warner Brothers Discovery deal, shareholder vote April 23rd, close targeted for quarter 3, promises $6 billion in synergies. Synergies which everyone knows means heavy duplication cuts across thousands of roles. Yes, sometimes redundancy is a bad thing. Speaking of bad, Bad Robot is shrinking and fleeing LA. Jeff Shell is out again amid scandal. Sony is trimming mid-management. CBS is outsourcing late night. The list goes on and on. This is not a temporary dip. It's structural. California policies, high costs, competition from other states and countries, and big tech eating the lunch of traditional players have all accelerated the bleed. Bleed, a word chosen with intention, as that at this scale it's deadly for industry. The people who rode the wave of easy money and political posturing are now watching the tide go out and realizing they built on sand. Disney, one of the forerunners in the politics first crowd, set into projects to restructure all the tried and true pathways of the past. Reimagining tomorrow became a disastrous choice that their new CEO, Josh D'Amaro, has no support to correct. Outcomes for the types of consolidation we will be seeing will centralize debt load for redistribution. It will eliminate a large number of jobs. It will call on outside contractors for more input. None of that is the big question. The bigger question, when the dust settles after layoffs, will what is left still feel like Hollywood, or just a smaller, more leveraged content factory feeding the remaining streamers and tech platforms? And part of the reason I wanted to lead with this, and I haven't looked into any of this yet, but I saw news tonight of layoffs at Marvel for visual effects roles, and there was another bunch of layoffs that I think were Disney related. I can't remember what the actual headline was, but there's more waves coming, and that's not really a great thing, especially when you've got Doomsday coming up. If they're laying off the Marvel VFX people, what are they doing?
I know. You would think they should be amongst the safest.
Yeah, and I want to preface again, or reiterate, I guess I should say, I don't know for sure that that's true. It's something that I saw come across my feed, so it may not actually be true. But if it is, it leads me to wonder, is the issue that they can't accomplish in-house what needs to be done? Have they have somehow they lost their talent edge, or are for some reason they contracting the shots out, or maybe it's they finished the VFX shots, but that seems impossible. Usually that work continues right up until release.
Also, too, we're used to seeing a Marvel that had its entire decade outlined ahead of time with what 6 to 8 movies in the pike, and they were developing, 6 to 8 TV shows, and we don't really know what's next. I don't count Spider-Man. Spider-Man belongs to Sony. So we don't really know what's next. We don't have a phase. We don't have an itemized phase. We don't have a phase for TV. They're just kind of throwing stuff up against the wall and seeing what works, and that means there's a whole lot of salaries for not a lot of work. So I can see this being true. I can see this being true. I can also see them not understanding that they're probably getting rid of the wrong people, because I would imagine that when it comes to Doomsday, especially with the amount of work that Doomsday and Secret War are going to need, it should be all hands on deck at all times. But again, Marvel hasn't exactly made the most sound decisions.
That's another question that I have, is that I know that Pro is convinced that there's going to be a trilogy out of this thing, and that they're just waiting to announce the next 2 movies. I don't know that I buy that. I think Secret Wars is a lock, but I think a lot's going to depend on how Doomsday actually does. We were discussing the reported budget on this thing, and if it's true, I don't think they have a prayer of this movie being profitable. And you cannot continue to just make movies when you're not making any money.
Yeah. Well, it's the age-old question, right? How long can you fail without consequences, and how long can you allow people to fail upward? There should have been major course corrections at Marvel a long time ago.
Do you think they're actually trying to answer that question? Maybe they're treating this as scientific research. I don't know.
I will. You look at. I'm shocked that people are shocked that that Secret Height. Oh, not Secret Height. Which JJ's
Bad Robot.
Bad Robot. That Bad Robot was going through a riff. And I'm like, what do you mean? He not stole, but he was paid a lot of money to do absolutely nothing for Warner Brothers. I mean, absolutely nothing for Warner Brothers. And then was paid a lot of money to essentially fail everywhere he went. Who's hiring this guy?
And that's before you get to his disciples, who I'm sure we'll be talking about more tonight.
Yep. And so it's not like at any point in time, outside of his own name and for what he was able to accomplish, mostly with 90s TV, right? Because really what you got Felicity, and you got, what was the Jennifer Garner show?
Alias.
Yeah, so you got Felicity, you got Alias, and then he got lucky with with helping get things like Lost off the ground. Aside from that, once you realize on 8mm, once you realize that that's just a mashup of 2 movies that were done better.
I did not like
8mm, that's the James Gandolfini movie.
No, I think that's right, isn't it?
Is it?
I thought it was.
I thought that was just accidentally the James Gandolfini Nicolas Cage movie.
No, you're right. It's Super 8.
Super 8 with Super 8. Yeah. I was like, wait, no, hold on. There's a very different movie.
Yep, you're right. Super 8 is one of the few Abrams projects that I can point to and say that I actually do like that movie. I think that was a good one. The tragic thing about Abrams, besides the smoking wreckage that he's left in his wake everywhere that he went, is that he genuinely is a guy who has great potential.
Mhm.
And he's an excellent mimic. I mean, for all of the Force Awakens faults, he is mimicking the cinematography of George Lucas like nobody's business. He's
Mhm.
right down to some of the camera moves, the wipes, the dissolves, the lighting, the framing. And he does the same thing with Super 8 in that he's mimicking Spielberg, which he often did. He is fantastic at mimicking their styles. And I think there are times when he gets the idea of the tone of what he wants. I know he wants to evoke particular moods. He wants to get you into a particular frame of mind when you're watching his pictures. Like, I want you to feel like you're watching a Lucas movie. I want you to feel like you're watching another version of E.T. I want you to feel this or that other thing. But I think he's so scared to death to write. That's why he leans on the mystery box approach. He's great at asking intriguing questions. He is absolutely awful at writing a story. If he was just paired up with a good writer,
Yep.
I think the guy could actually be a powerhouse, and yet somehow he's come to this.
Yeah, well, he's, I think you could probably call him a catastrophic success in the sense that he didn't have to eat a lot of crap like M. Night Shyamalan did. He had to kind of really fall, become a joke, a meme, and then build himself back up to find some success again. JJ he just succeeded by off of the sheer sake of he hit the nostalgia wave before people knew that there was a nostalgia wave. And like I said, he is excellent. He's an excellent mimic. So you don't necessarily know that he's turned in someone else's homework. Until you've had a chance to really think about it. Like again, Cloverfield. Oh, Cloverfield was pretty cool. Was it? Was it though? I think you saw a better version of that though somewhere at some point in time of your life.
Well, that's again where, see, I never saw Cloverfield, but I remember the trailer. And I remember the trailer, it didn't really tell you anything about the movie, but it evoked a feeling, and this is again what I think he's good at. It evoked a feeling of dread, and I think in that sense, he's really good at knowing what buttons to push to get an emotional response. But he's also a little bit like the villain in those old cartoons where when the kids are about to close in on him, he throws down a smoke bag and vanishes. That's what he does in so much of his productions. It's like, well, I gave you the core concept. Bye.
Yeah, yeah. And like I said, it would be interesting to see what he could do if he had the right writing partner. Someone who could kind of take what his core concept was and run with it. And is he capable of allowing someone to take it and run with it, or will his ego get in the way? The other part of it too is, hey, his wife reigned a terror. She had a good few years where she reigned terror upon the souls of very competent people by being the overlord of the Me Too movement.
I wasn't aware of that.
Oh yeah. His wife was the head of the Me Too movement organization. So,
Oh, I see something excellent here that I want to call out. Actually, I saw a couple. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit on some of this, guys, just because I see that our friend C. Andrew Nelson is in the audience again tonight. We interviewed him the other day. He is the fellow who is the performer who has played Darth Vader more than anybody else in Star Wars history. He had a couple of comments here that I saw that I wanted to mention. The first is that he enjoyed Super 8 because that was him in high school. I was just like that back then, minus the alien invasion. But this is the one that I wanted to focus on. Preach it, guys. You have JJ perfectly defined. He's an excellent mimic, but isn't that dangerously close to being manipulative? Yes, but that's what you're doing with movies and TV. And there are times when I will penalize a movie when I feel like you are nakedly pulling on the heartstrings to try and make me cry or feel something that I don't necessarily feel you earned through non-manipulative means. But the really great filmmakers, they definitely know how to manipulate the audience to get them into a frame of mind, but the magic trick has to be you don't realize that that's what's happening. You have to be in the moment, you have to be feeling it with the characters. You have to identify with the people that are on the screen. Now, this is where I'm going to get myself in trouble here because I just used that phrase. That's the phrase that the woke would use when they say that I need to identify with the people on the screen. And in concept, that phrase isn't wrong. You do need to identify with the people on the screen. My issue comes from the fact that if you're a normal functioning human being, you should be able to identify and empathize with people on the screen regardless of their background.
Well, yeah, it should come down to character traits, not their physical appearance. Like I can see traits that I can see a little bit of myself in Optimus Prime and Goku. I don't, and I'm like, I don't need them to make a black semi semi truck robot to feel seen.
And empathizing or identifying with somebody doesn't necessarily mean they have to be the good guy or the protagonist. They could just be, it's like, okay, here's a great example. And he would hate this, and I cannot think of the actor's name, but the guy who played Walter Peck in Ghostbusters,
Yes.
who hated the fact that everybody hated him. But the reason everybody hated him is that everybody knows somebody in government civil service
Yes.
that reminds you of that guy, and you hate that guy.
Yeah, he played an excellent bureaucrat,
And that's part of what makes it great, because you love to hate that guy. And now sometimes I feel bad for actors because you can get typecast in that kind of a role. And another thing is, some people don't have the ability to separate the art from the artist. And I'm usually pretty good about that. There are a few, I suppose, that I can't do it with, but it's rare. And usually that's kind of a vibe thing. But I don't know. I feel like Abrams, to me, he feels like he's really only half a step away from actually being a really good filmmaker. And that's part of what's so frustrating about him. It's like I guess one of the things I think about is I look at the 2009 Star Trek, which we will get into, I'm sure, a little bit tonight. I actually really liked that movie. I thought that was a pretty good introduction to a modern take on the original series. I have some quibbles with some of the stuff they did story-wise, particularly with Spock, but I thought that he got that the core of what drew people to Star Trek was that triumvirate of Kirk, Spock, and Bones. And that was still there. Those characters were a little bit different, but the core was still those three guys boldly going. And he got that. But he got a little bit too much on the twitchy action side. I'd like him to go a little bit more cerebral. Anyway, we probably belabored this topic too much. We do have a couple more to get to. I'm going to save. There's one here from SFX Sabretooth Raptor that I'm going to save for when we do get into the Star Trek portion of the conversation, because it's an involved Star Trek question. But Solstice Studios did gift 20 WDW Pro memberships. Thank you, Solstice. You're always generous. We don't deserve you, honestly. You spend a lot of money supporting people on these various pro channels, and we love you. We appreciate it, folks. If you receive one of those memberships out of the chat, be sure to thank Solstice for that. He's a wonderful supporter. We love all of you here. Be sure to check out some of the perks that you get with those memberships. I'm gonna do another personal plug for that pod place. I've been trying to get this channel back up off the ground. We need subs. We need interaction, whether that be with likes, comments, or just sharing it out for people to let people know that you like the content that's there. If you do, I would really appreciate it if you guys would engage with that channel, because it's meaningful to me on the back end to try and get that one up and as successful as the other channels that we operate. Our next story for the night is PlayStation for PC executive accidentally reveals it took years to reach $300 million in revenue. This actually surprised me. But we'll read the article and then we'll talk about it. Sony has been porting PlayStation games to PC for years now, including PlayStation exclusives, and a recent LinkedIn post from a former employee has revealed how long it took for the practice to become profitable. Jerry Liu was the PC planner and insights manager for PlayStation, serving from January 2021 to June 2023. He was in charge of porting PlayStation games to PC, among other things, including convincing PlayStation leadership to adopt a more aggressive pricing strategy, which Liu says helped increase PlayStation's gross revenue by 25%. Liu also says that during his time in that position, he oversaw the growth of profits from porting PlayStation games to PC from $0 to $300 million. That's impressive for a resume, but in terms of PlayStation's profits, it's not good. Although technically PlayStation games have been ported to PC since 1995, modern porting began in 2020 with Horizon Zero Dawn, and it seems this division was in dire straits when Liu took over. And though it obviously became much more successful under Liu's watch, the profits it generated are a third of those brought in by PlayStation Software for the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, according to Insider Gamer, which makes $300 million in a single year. This explains why Sony is no longer releasing single-player games on PC, according to a Bloomberg report. It'll be keeping games made internally strictly for PlayStation consoles, with Ghosts of Yotai used as an example, while multiplayer games like Marathon, developed by Sony studio Bungie, or Marvel Token Fighting Souls. Perhaps the gulf in profits has convinced Sony not to bother porting as many PlayStation games to PC, particularly single-player games. While Liu doesn't give specifics, maybe multiplayer games do better on PC than single-player games, making their ports worth it, while single-player games would make more if they stayed as PlayStation exclusives. Interestingly, Liu also posted on his LinkedIn page about how single-player gamers are a wise investment for gaming companies, certainly above live service games trying to compete with the likes of Fortnite. Liu reasoned that it is easier to pull someone away from Fortnite or Minecraft with a single-player game that is a different experience than trying to siphon off gamers with a cheap knockoff of something they're already playing. This appears to be something the industry is slowly embracing, as PlayStation veteran Shawnee Layden called live service games a mirage that don't make video game companies money outside of a very small list of winners that are already well established. With PlayStation games taking so long to become profitable when ported to PC, maybe it's wise for Sony to back off the practice to a large degree, only releasing games that will sell well on PC. And if the aggressive pricing Liu recommended works so well, we probably shouldn't expect the PlayStation 5 prices to come down anytime soon either. So, this one took me by surprise a little bit, because I was excited when PlayStation started offering their titles on PC, and I assumed there was going to be a wide adoption of them. But when I was thinking about it tonight, it occurred to me that gamers are gamers, and they're probably not necessarily sticking to a single platform. I'm almost exclusively a PC gamer, and so I was looking at it through my own lens. But I suspect lots of gamers probably have multiple consoles as well as a PC, or maybe not a PC at all. So maybe those PlayStation owners already owned the games on PlayStation and didn't see a need to port them to PC. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm with you, because I'm a console gamer. Like when I probably had the opportunity to be a PC person, there was no way my father was going to spend the money necessary for me to play Star Wars TIE Fighter. That's why I always had to go to my friend's house. And then so I became a console guy, and I will generally eventually get all the consoles that are floating out there, and hunt down wherever the exclusives are. And I do occasionally wind up going, I think this game will play better on this system. More like during the Mass Effect days, I started on Xbox, so I finished it on Xbox. And then I got Andromeda for PlayStation, because I wanted to start a new adventure on a new system. And sometimes I see the graphics on PC, and they do intrigue me, but I'm like, I'm not jumping over. And I do think that with a lot of the PlayStation library, I think that I also find that a lot of people who PC game also had PlayStations too, though. So I don't think there was that big of a need, or rather say urgency. There wasn't enough urgency to make this strategy as successful as it could have been. / Sony's been taking a hit on every PlayStation unit that it produces because they can't actually charge the amount of money you need to charge for the thing without being laughed out of the building. So, I'm not shocked it took them this long to generate the amount of money that they needed, that they said they generated.
I think it's a shame because for a brief moment in time, I had a glimmer that maybe we're finally done with the console wars and console
Mhm.
exclusivity. I'd much rather people can just game the way that they want to. On the other hand, this is part of why I'm so much in Valve's camp and eager to see what they're planning to do with the Steam machine and the Steam frame and Steam OS. I'm really hoping that this becomes the great leveler that I hope it dominates the console market, is what I'm trying to say. I think that in my mind, I think that they are not plugging the features that I think are actually going to make them more successful than they would seem on paper. I think that they have a much grander strategy in mind than they've led on so far. So we'll see how it goes.
Gaming, I think gaming in general needs to take a little sit, sit down and take a moment to self-reflect.
Yes, I agree with you there. When it comes to the live service games and the AAA pricing, where they all tried to push 80, 90,
Yeah.
$100 for the premium stuff, it's like you can knock that garbage off right now. And I think it seems to me they're finally getting that message. I think that they sort of uh, cut their own throats, if you'll forgive the expression,
Mm-hmm.
because people won't tolerate that, especially on the PC platforms, because all we have to do is just wait you out until you put it on a Steam sale. So um, we'll see. Next up, we've got my favorite girl and yours. Gina Carano comments on her Disney cancellation. Gina Carano was positioned to become a key player in Star Wars before her cancellation by Disney. Her character, Cara Dune, quickly emerged as a fan favorite on the then breakout Disney Plus series The Mandalorian, with reports even suggesting a potential spin-off was in development. However, following a controversial social media post, Disney publicly cut ties with the actress. In a recent interview ahead of her first MMA fight in 17 years, Carano revisited the circumstances surrounding her firing. During an appearance on the MMA show Jackson Podcast, host Bear DeGidio remarked that since her cancellation, Gina Carano seems like a brand new person. He went on to ask whether people had simply not been listening to her comments at the time, and whether she was ultimately canceled because it was cool to do so. Carano responded that her cancellation was the result of Disney trying to make an example out of her. At the time of her social media posts, later described by Lucasfilm as abhorrent and unacceptable, public tensions were running high. The actress emphasized that she typically avoids controversial topics, but felt that many people were afraid to speak out about the prevailing health mandates. I felt like I had to say something, Carano said. It was so heavy on my heart, and that put like a target on me. And we're now finding out like I was right, she laughed. I was right to be asking the questions I was asking. Of course, challenging the established narrative brought immediate and unexpected consequences. Gina Carano was removed from The Mandalorian in a way that effectively made her unhireable in Hollywood, widely seen by supporters as a textbook example of cancellation. Yet the actress and fighter does not appear to have any regrets. Reflecting on the experience, Carano admitted, I have to say it was really hard to go through. She added, I wouldn't wish that on anyone, but I'm happy it happened to me, and I think it's probably one of the best things that could have happened to me because I learned so much about myself. A major factor in the reversal of Carano's cancellation was the lawsuit she filed against Disney and Lucasfilm, backed by Elon Musk. The ex-owner had previously offered support to individuals he believed were fired for political reasons tied to their activity on his platform. While her wrongful termination claims were ultimately settled out of court, the outcome signaled that her firing may have been unjustified. Now Carano is preparing for a very different fight. Her MMA match against Ronda Rousey will air on Netflix on May 16, 2026. It's a fight many fans have long anticipated, and both fighters have been out of the ring for some time. As Carano steps back into the spotlight, her story remains closely tied to her cancellation by Disney, a moment that reshaped both her acting career and public image. What began as a sudden exit from The Mandalorian has evolved into a broader narrative about risk, consequence, and resilience, ensuring that her firing continues to frame how audiences interpret her next chapter. So I'm glad she's still talking about this, and
Yep.
I'm glad that she's going to have the fight with Ronda. I'm certain at least certain-ish. You're going to watch it, aren't you? I'm sure you would.
Oh heck yeah! I watched Gina fights back in the day. I love Gina. I think I think just her backstory is just so interesting. You have this person who comes from this super wealthy family.
Yeah, she's not the person that you would typically imagine would become an MMA fighter.
Yeah, yeah. And I always thought she's been a brilliant spokesperson. Whenever, and I want to go see Haywire when it came out, and I was like, why did they dub over her voice? This is so weird. So I was super excited when she was cast in Mandalorian. And like everybody else, I I wonder when we get to start having very frank conversations about what discourse was like during that period of time.
Well, this kind of segues into another story that I don't actually have propped up for tonight, but I assume you've heard that Disney has hired Trump's I think it's a former lawyer to try and intimidate HarperCollins about a book that's coming out that's supposed to be exposing Disney under the Iger era. Did you hear about that story?
No,
Oh, okay.
I've been in a news bubble. So this is I'm a baby duck whenever these stories pop up.
Okay, so this was a story that we talked about a little bit yesterday on the pro show, and I'm unfortunately not going to remember names, but the gist of the story is that Disney has hired the lawyer that represented Donald Trump against Stormy Daniels to try and honestly, it sounds like right now it's an attempt to intimidate the publisher of an unauthorized book about internal workings at Disney under Iger's tenure. And the reason that they're worried, or at least the reason that they seem to be worried, is that they think that one of the major sources for the book is probably Bob Chapek.
Mm.
And so what they are demanding is that they're trying to go to court and force some type of a ruling that requires them the ability to fact check the book before it comes out.
Oh,
Uh, I have a hard time believing that they'll get that, but Culture Casino's position is that this is likely a stalling tactic to try and at least push back the release date. Now, the real question is, what exactly are they afraid of coming out in this book? And it's especially interesting because it wasn't Bob Iger that hired the lawyer; it was Disney, and Disney is no longer rather Iger is no longer the CEO of the company. So
mm.
this is a little strange, and I'm wondering if the book isn't going to touch on the Carano story because I'm sure that would be a juicy morsel to put in there.
I'll say the damage is done, and we can and it's finally over for them. But if we're going to talk about what he put in place, that's not just a peek behind the curtain. You've pulled it off of the rack, and they don't want people seeing how deep and how pervasive these changes were, because it'll give unwanted insight into the corporate mentality, why they allowed certain things to happen. You may even start getting into who signed off on certain decisions.
Well,
The
here's my thought. Besides potentially trying to push out the release date of the book, my guess is the reason that they want to preview it supposedly to fact check is I think they're trying to determine who are the sources.
Yep.
Because there's going to be certain information in there that only certain people would know. And if Chapek is a major source, it's possible that he's still under NDA. And that may be what they're trying to determine. If they can verify that Chapek is a source, and if he is still under NDA, that may be enough to get the publication quashed entirely. And I suspect that may be what they're doing here.
Yeah, yeah. I get it. Listen, I will say this: if I'm Disney, I'm probably doing the same thing. I don't want people knowing what happens behind closed doors. But hey, guys, this is a fun time.
Yeah, there's gonna be. I mean, when you consider everything that has happened in the last 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
you've got a period of time there when we went through the Me Too movement. There's been all the Epstein stuff. There's
Mm-hmm.
the pandemic. There's the woke era. All of that in a 10-year period. And
Yep.
eventually, NDAs do have a limit, and people are going to start talking. There are going to be books published about this time frame, no question about it, at some point in the future. And boy, are there going to be juicy things to talk about when that happens.
Oh my gosh. I'm excited for this. It's I want all the tea. Spin it. Just let me see, because I want to know who we get to point fingers at for dumb decisions that got made, the dumb decisions that were possibly going to be made, the yeah, and then this is going to encompass all of Disney. So
Well,
let's
that's
let's
that.
let's pour that big bright light on Lucasfilm
Well,
and see.
that's the other thing is that it's like it's not just going to be the people that aren't there anymore. It's going to be the people that are still there.
Mm-hmm.
And when some of that stuff starts leaking, everybody's going to have knives out for everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be survival of the fittest, I think.
Here's the other part too. Like, listen, they still have big mountains to climb. The streaming era, I think, in a few years, its greatest accomplishment will be that it's been an unmitigated failure for everybody except Netflix, and even Netflix had to eat a lot of crap along the way. They willfully destroyed the home video market, which meant they chopped off a major revenue source.
Yep.
Which meant that also because they chopped off a major revenue source, they killed their ability to give us the kinds of movies that we were getting, which limited variety, which is in turn had a trickle down effect on killing the movie theaters. And they are too bullheaded to want to reverse course on that. You're forcing everybody to buy Disney Plus when no one wants it. You're getting rid of Hulu, which is the one thing everybody liked. The ESPN Plus is not something anybody really cares about. So you're doing everything in your power to try to pull people towards it. And at some point in time, you're just gonna have to let the dam burst. Let all the destruction, let all the rain, all the misery and horror rain down on everyone. And then when the water drains, and let it go back to what it's supposed to be. So that's going to be another massive. That's going to be another massive scandal where you're going to sit down and go, well, who was the brain trust who put this together, and how did no one see this coming?
All right, so since we're talking about industry impacts, one of the things that has made me nervous about everything in Hollywood right now is so much consolidation has taken place that I don't think that it's healthy. We have a much smaller number of studios than we once had. At some point, if they want to revitalize this industry, somebody's going to have to take a maverick move. Somebody is going to have to try and put together a new studio. And that may be people who can no longer work in the existing studio system. Trying to start up a studio seems like it would be a nearly impossible task. But then you've got all these layoffs occurring. Now, I think that's probably more. I'm guessing this is probably going to be people that aren't working right now. It's going to be tradespeople. It's going to be lighting, gaffing. The normal tradespeople is probably not going to be executives and people putting together financing and things like that. But some of those people would probably be interested in making a change if they thought there was an upside to it. Do we think that theatrical can be resuscitated in some way if an independent studio started taking risks?
I think so. I think theaters are not that hard to rescue. It's really just going to be you need more content and you need a return to quality content, and it just you just got to give the theater something to put out. Again, you look at the Mario is printing money. And for whatever reason, the critics hate it, but Mario is printing money.
There was another one that I watched a review of today, which is another movie that I'm looking forward to this year. I'm shocked at how many movies I think actually look good this year. This is a Bob Odenkirk movie. It's in the same vein as
Oh,
Nobody.
mhm,
This one is
mhm.
called Normal.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's out now, and I haven't seen hardly any marketing for it.
Mhm.
And I think I don't want to get out ahead of my skis on this, but Jeremy Johns liked it. And it seems to me that we are starting to see them flirt with the idea
Mhm.
of maybe we just need to make fun movies.
Mhm.
And if that concept takes off, maybe there's a chance.
I would say it is crazy to me in the environment that we are in, especially coming out of the post pandemic era, and where people are just so sick and tired of actors pontificating and just being, just being these virtuous forces for good that they really aren't. To me, like, you should be cranking out the high octane musclehead action movie,
They,
or the silly cop movie, and the lawyer drama, and the rom com. Like, you've
but
got to go back to
they don't
basics.
have those stars anymore.
And
They haven't.
yep, and they don't, and you do have them. There's still a few of them out there. A lot of them are unfortunately a little older than they should have been, but like you do have folks like Scott Atkins who can jump in there and give you a couple really good quick things and just give you something different, because I think people kind of want that. I go, there's a reason why when you sign into Amazon, you see what these top 10 movies are. You're like, well, you go, first we go, how dare you want to charge me $30 for the Terminator?
Well, okay. It's like I think one of the encouraging things that we are seeing, maybe, and this shocks me to say this, but Amazon with MGM, they've got Project Hail Mary. They've got He-Man coming out, which I hope is going to be good. Um, Before that, they had the Chris Pratt movie that I think just kind of came and went, but it looked good to me. It was called Mercy. It was kind of an
Oh
action flick
yeah.
thriller that was AI centered. It's topical. Um, if they continue to put out things like that that look like they're just fun, maybe MGM can have kind of a revival, which would be fun. I would love to see that.
Yeah, well, you know what they're also gonna have to do too? They do not know how to market to men anymore. They just don't. Um,
They know
if
how to
you
market to certain men.
yes, they don't market to certain men. But I'm the guy who goes to the movie. They don't know how to talk to them anymore. So,
Well, they don't want to
and they
talk to
don't
them
want to,
anymore.
but you have to. So like that Chris Pratt movie, that should have made buku bucks. And I guess again, it kind of came in one. What was the Kevin Costner movie from a few years ago? That should
Oh
have.
yeah, it was the really long one, Horizon.
Yes, that should have printed money for them. Or even like something like Mario. Like when you look at a lot of these video game movies, yeah, they're for kids, but they're also for the dads who have kids who grew up during that era.
Yep.
Who are all kind of in their, mostly in their the varying degrees of their 40s. It's that guy is the guy who grew up on the movie theater and grew up on home video. You've got to find a way to talk to him and let him feel like he's being included in the conversation, because in a few years he may decide he's going to go do something else. And generally, I find that that particular demo of man, they are multitaskers when it comes to exploring all aspects of entertainment. Again, I'll go and buy every system that's available if it's affordable, or when it's affordable. I'll experiment with new formats. If you told me that you were the brand new Laserdisc Betamax HD, the high def D, I'll go give it a shot if it's on sale during Black Friday. It's like you left that guy out in the cold, but that's the guy who's going to spend money for the sake of being entertained. The So it's the you need the guy who's going to drop a bunch of money to staycation because he'd rather be home than spending a bunch of money on nothing. So it's like they can't talk to that dude anymore, and you got to figure out how, because that's the guy that's going to resurrect the movie theaters and pass that mindset down to his kids.
Yep. We got a couple of super chats I need to get to here. Actually, one of them is still the one that I'm holding. I forgot about that one. And the other one says I don't need to read it, but I'm gonna anyway because you dropped $50. Solstice Studios again for 50 said, you don't have to read this one, just to bring it to your attention. As far as that pod place goes, I'm just waiting for the live streams to do there what I do here. This is normally the only live stream I can make regularly, and we do appreciate that you do, Solstice. That's actually part of why I've been plugging that pod place, is we're wanting to get it to a place where we can do the live streams. There's other stuff that we want to do with that channel. There is other material that we also need to get up there regularly as well. Some of that is going to be, I think, the Lost Guys is probably eventually going to be returning on there. It's just a matter of getting through our backlog and getting caught up, and hopefully we can make it a thriving channel again. So again, I'm just going to make another plug if you guys don't mind. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. If you have, ring the notification bell, make a comment on some videos, whatever you can do. It helps out a lot, and we really appreciate it. Our next story is one that's tailor-made for you, because I don't know anything about it, and I think you're probably going to have things to say about it. This is Mike Colter spoils Daredevil Born Again Season 3 with behind-the-scenes photo. Now, I'm giving you guys an early warning on this. If any of you don't want to be spoiled on Daredevil Season 3, they do get into what the spoiler is. Personally, I consider it to be pretty minor, but if you want to go in completely unspoiled, you may want to walk away for a few minutes while we talk about it. And I guess I should ask you, do you mind if we talk about it, Kevin?
Oh, I'm all for it. Go for it. I love Mike Walker. I think as an actor, his willingness to explore other things makes him pretty interesting. And I thought it was stupid that Marvel didn't bend over backwards to get him into the movies when we decided that because Promoter had success, that they weren't a part of the main MCU. So now they're back. It's like, okay, cool. Let's get this full throttle.
All right, here we go. Mike Colter may have just spoiled Daredevil Born Again, although the spoilers are for story elements that were heavily rumored to begin with. Colter played Luke Cage on Netflix's Marvel shows, first appearing in Jessica Jones before getting his own self-titled series and then joining forces with his fellow heroes in The Defenders. When Charlie Cox showed up in Spider-Man No Way Home and confirmed that the Netflix shows were MCU canon, fans wondered when the rest of the Defenders would return, or if they would. Daredevil eventually got his own Disney Plus follow-up series, Daredevil Born Again, which also saw the return of Jon Bernthal as the Punisher, who will also appear in a Spider-Man movie this summer, and Jessica Jones is confirmed to be back on Born Again this year. Finally, photos from the set of Daredevil Born Again Season 3 revealed that Colter's Luke Cage would be back, as would Finn Jones' Iron Fist. Yesterday, however, Mike Colter posted a series of pictures of himself with former co-stars, several of which were from the set of Daredevil Born Again. Only a few remain on his account. One shows Colter smiling in a car with Kristen Ritter and Finn Jones in costume as Jessica Jones and Iron Fist. Another of Colter in a suit while waiting to play Luke Cage. But it was another picture Mike Colter posted that spoiled Daredevil Born Again Seasons 2 and 3. You can see it below, but again, if you'd rather not know what's coming, this is a spoiler. There it is. Seeing Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock wearing a prison uniform all but confirms the rumors that Daredevil Born Again Season 3 will adapt the Ed Brubaker storyline, The Devil in Cell Block D. This story finds Matt in prison for his activities as Daredevil, having to fight for his life against some of his villains, including the Kingpin. This will almost certainly dovetail off Season 2, which showrunner Dario Scartapane said is going to end the Mayor Fisk story arc from the first 2 seasons, in which the Kingpin becomes the mayor of New York City. On the show, Fisk knows that Matt Murdock is Daredevil, and while he's kept that secret to himself so far, if he's taken down and arrested at the end, it's entirely believable that he'll take his nemesis down with him. And once they're both locked up, the Kingpin, who has proven he can control a prison just as easily as he can the New York underworld, will be even better situated to eliminate Daredevil once and for all. The people Mike Coulter may have truly spoiled Daredevil Born Again for are those who are unfamiliar with the comics and have never heard of the Devil in Cell Block D or any other comic book story arcs. The name will mean nothing, but if they see the picture, they'll know Matt will be in jail next year. Still, many questions remain, such as what Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, and Iron Fist are up to in Season 3. Best guess? Keeping the streets safe while trying to get Matt out of prison. And what other Marvel characters will figure into the story? Punisher? Bullseye? Resurrected Foggy Nelson? However, once again, we learned how much social media can get you in trouble, so tantalizing is the share button. So,
there was a picture that, well, one, they mentioned Jessica's daughter in the trailer, and I'm like, they're not going to talk about her daughter if they don't have Mike Coulter back, because if you don't know, Luke is the father. So I'm like, you're not going to do that part of Jessica's life without being able to address that Luke Cage is that they're together. It just doesn't make sense. The other part is I could swear that they put out an image and it was, to me, I'm like, oh, it's fairly obvious that that's Mike Coulter. Like, so I'm like, there's really no shock here.
that was the one where his face was partially obscured, right?
Yeah. So, but listen, this is cool though. I know a lot of people crapped on Finn Jones. I'm actually excited for what's his name? I said Jim Jones. I bet Finn Jones.
Finn Jones, yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited for the Finn Jones redemption arc. People forget that he was done extremely dirty. He didn't even have 2 weeks to prepare for his role.
Nope.
He got hired and was told to be on set when usually you have months to prepare. Yep. Months to prepare.
And I think he took it personally. I think it was embarrassing, and he took a lot of flack, and I think he's going to want to redeem himself. So I have no doubt that he will have got some training in and have learned about the character.
And the fact that the two of them actually do have chemistry together, I thought was also very impressive. So I kind of want to see. I want to see Power Man and Iron Fist. I see. Yeah, the writing in the first season of Iron Fist was terrible, and it's because it was a little hard to want to do an Iron Fist TV show anyway, because there isn't a lot of stuff to pull from. They tried to do an amalgamation of the John Byrne run, but without the Namor stuff that John Byrne did, a lot of that Iron Fist stuff was not going to make any sense. The comic fans kind of knew, but then they deviated so far for what Byrne was trying to do, and then they were so reluctant to embrace the actual magical aspect of the Iron Fist and show you the stupid dragon, he was just kind of stuck. It was just kind of stuck, and then sometimes some of these shows do need to be a little shorter.
All right, so this is going to lead into the elephant in the room. We're still talking about a Disney Plus Daredevil that is going to be inserting the message into it.
I know.
You've got people that you want to see on the screen coming back, hopefully doing a better job. They're at least going to be doing a topical adaptation of The Devil in Cell Block D. 1, what are the odds of them doing it right? And 2, just as a flight of fancy, if they do it right, what does that mean for Daredevil going forward as a series?
Well, to me, the only way you're gonna, I don't think that they're prepared, because Marvel proper wasn't prepared to have to deal with the public knowing who Matt Murdock is. I don't understand why comic books do this thing lately, where we had this weird obsession in Marvel, and actually, so the actual directive was, secret identities are stupid.
Yeah, it's because they're embarrassed of the source material.
Yes, absolutely. So they got rid of thought bubbles, and they wanted to get rid of secret identities. And there was a little bit of jealousy in the sense that the DC characters were all interconnected somehow, so they all knew each other's identity. They had an actual community, Whereas the Marvel heroes outside of the X-Men block and the Avengers block, everybody else is secret. They don't know. The outside of the Fantastic Four knowing who Spider-Man is. So they forced a lot of things that had consequences that they were not prepared to have to deal with, and then they had to do a lot of gymnastics to put it back in. So, hey, if we're gonna unmask Daredevil after we had to very stupidly unmask Peter Parker and then kind of like throw that off to the side as quickly as you did it, it became such a non-part of the story. It was just really like a plot contrivance to get to doing the stupid magical spell. Then I hope that means that we figured out a way to bring David Tennant back and actually let him be the color purple and let him be the reason that people forgot that Daredevil is Matt Murdock. That's the only thing I see. Outside of that, though, these folks can't get out of their way with the modern day current garbage. They just they're trapped in their little myopic bubbles, and they got a lecture, and it's like, well, the first season tanked because it was it was scrapbooked garbage that had too much of the message in it. And although I've heard some people say this season's a little bit better, I don't see any real enthusiasm for this show right now either, though.
Well, I think that may come down to the fact that people are just so I mean, I think the comic book fatigue argument right now is actually valid. I think people are just sort of sick of it. It's time for something different. They need to lay low for a while.
Yeah, no, I agree. I've been screaming this for almost 2 years. It's comic book. They ruined it by one not doing different comic books. I think it's generally superhero fatigue because we only tell one kind of superhero story anyway, and there are only two characters that are immune to this: Batman and Spider-Man. They are totally different animals. Everybody else really kind of should have gone away for a while. I think maybe Superman, if you have the right kind of Superman story, but even then, I don't think there's any room for it, especially with the lack of variety. There just aren't enough. Like, I'll put it to you like this: I don't need, as much as I would love to see a modern Indiana Jones movie, not the garbage we got. I in the sense of I want to see an adventure flick. It is, how have we not gotten a modern day just adventure flick where a guy is stuck someplace with a beautiful woman and they are globe trotting to beat someone to an artifact. It's because we need a little bit of adventure, and it shouldn't. And again, I said indie just because it's easier to paint the picture of what I'm talking about.
Right, but I think you're actually right, because the problem with I don't think you can do that kind of story in the modern day. I think that those are a product of their time. You've got to do that as a throwback. That's why I'm excited about The Mummy, or at least I hope to be excited about The Mummy. I'm worried that Stephen Summers isn't involved, and that makes me wonder, are you going to be able to capture the tone correctly? But at least I appreciate the fact that somebody's making an attempt.
Yeah, well, it's like there's so many abandoned genres that, like, there's no reason that we aren't sticking a finger or dipping a toe into the pool of every single one of these and seeing where the next big fun story is.
The last one that I can think of that is what you're talking about was a Sandra Bullock movie that was a remake of Romancing the Stone, and I can't think of what the name of it was.
Oh, the one with Channing Tatum?
Yeah, that one. And actually, it wasn't bad. It was better than I thought that it was ever going to be, but I still don't think it holds a candle to the original. So.
I know people poop all over the Uncharted movie. I actually really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the Uncharted movie. I don't think that Tom Holland captures Nate the way that Nate should have been captured, but I really enjoyed the movie.
I see people mentioning National Treasure as well, and it's like I have a love-hate relationship with those movies because I love what they did, but at the same time they play so fast and loose with history that it's almost offensive. but I like the fact that they were actually sort of a little bit patriotic. You know, they were movies that wanted to make you proud of being an American.
That's it. Like, hey, let's let Jerry Bruckheimer and why can't I think of his name?
Oh, Nicolas Cage.
Yeah. Let's or what the other director? The Rock. Michael Bay. Let's let Jerry Bruckheimer and Michael Bay start making movies again, because I saw out there that Arnold is sitting out here actually petitioning for Commando 2. I love Commando. I watch Commando at least once a month. Commando and Raw Deal. I watch them at least once a month. I do not want to see Commando 2. I just don't. I am into old dudes kicking the crap out of people. I think it's fun. I do think there's an air to realism of it. Dad strength and old man strength are real. So, you know, an old dude who's like, just kind of leave me alone, and then all of a sudden wipes the floor with a bunch of people is cool. An old man killing the amount of people that you have to kill in order for Commando 2 to work, no, I don't buy it. And you're not going to go the route that I would hope they would do with another Rambo, where Rambo should be the Trouton. Like, it's like the John Matrix should have been training the next Matrix. And they're never going to do that. I don't need those sequels. Liam Neeson cranks those out every 5 minutes. I saw there was a sequel to Ice Road Trucker, and I'm like,
yeah, what? I saw that too. It's such a dumb movie. I actually did see. I didn't realize Bruckheimer was 82. Holy cow!
Oh wow.
I saw a comment here from Sean saying, "I didn't realize that there's a gravestone to Val Kilmer in Tombstone, Arizona." Interesting story about that. Him and Kurt really got along during the making of that movie, and they each independently bought each other a plot in the Tombstone Cemetery. Neither one of them communicating with the other that they were going to be doing this. So there's actually a plot there for Kurt Russell as well, next to Val's. So a little bit of trivia for you. Anyway, I think that's going to do it for the stories that we have for tonight. I had a couple more, but none of them are really... They're not huge stories that we need to cover tonight. We should get into the main topic of the night, which is Star Trek. And when I messaged you about this, it was kind of out of the blue. I didn't have any prep for it. I just thought we can have kind of a freewheeling conversation about whatever we want to have. I've noticed that the chat seems to get excited about Star Trek when we talk about it, even though I think people are down on modern Star Trek. And it's fertile ground for discussion. And then when I was putting stuff together for tonight about Star Trek, it's like, I know there's a lot of Star Trek stuff that has been produced, but I didn't realize quite how much. There have been 13 TV series and 13 movies. And actually, I think the information I was going off of was a little outdated, so there's probably more than that. I did not include all of it in the images because there were a couple that I thought they're probably not worth talking about. Some of that was short tracks. There was Prodigy. There were Lower Decks I didn't include. A lot of these I'm not really familiar with, so there's some of it that I won't be able to talk about at all. I don't know if you will be able to, but I don't know how you want to tackle this. Do you want to start by talking about like the shows, the movies, Star Trek in general? What do you want to do?
Oh, God, it's funny. So just a couple weeks ago, I was talking to a friend of mine about how good we had it, because technically this is the 60th anniversary, and the media is lamenting, which I think I rightfully predicted. The media is lamenting that there is no modern Star Trek in production. But that's not entirely true, because you have the Spider-Man Brand New Day team and the Dungeons and Dragons team working on something specifically at the behest of Mr. Ellison that is in no way attached to Kurtzman Trek.
I hadn't heard of this.
Yeah, I can't remember their names, but it was the one of the guys was an actor on the show Bones, and he developed the script for the first couple Spider-Man movies, and then they developed the script for Dungeons and Dragons. And what I find interesting is that they're coming into Star Trek in a place where Dungeons and Dragons was at, where the brand has been beleaguered at best. The fans love it, but the studio made a lot of really awful decisions and turned a lot of people off, and its mainstream appeal doesn't really exist, and everything that they have tried to do with the product in the mainstream has failed. And then they put in a movie that a lot of people really liked, critics alike, and it just
Killed the studio they financed, though.
well, yeah, that's it. It just made the sin of you did okay. You did okay when, if there was a home video market, that movie would have cleaned up. Instead, we're back to you either need to be a bomb so that there's at least a financial incentive for the studio, or you've got to be a mega hit. Anything else in between is just money lost. But they came in and they gave you a product that everybody really liked, that was true to the content, true to the lore, with characters that were likable. And it's really hard to get likable characters in shows now. So I am very, very curious to see what they're going to do. I know people want to go back to the OG series, but I'm like, I think we got to press forward unless you have a very specific story to tell.
Okay, but then I got to ask, press forward from where? Are we talking about from Voyager on, or are we talking about a millennium ahead from Starfleet Academy?
Oh no. You leave anything Kurtzman just untouched. Just
Okay.
It's throw it in the memory hole. Discovery never happened. The Strange New Worlds never happened. I only need to know two things about Captain Pike. He saved the pretty girl when he fought the big-headed, creepy aliens, and he was in a wheelchair that beeps, which I always tell people. It's going to be a little dark humor, but I always tell my wife, I'm like, listen, if something ever happens to me, it's like if I am incapacitated in any way, you have to do one thing before you make any other decisions. You put me in a Captain Pike chair, and you get something that goes boom after you ask me a question, and you get a bunch of pictures, and then you just store them somewhere. So, and after that, I don't care what you do, but just make sure that you get me in a Captain Pike cosplay, makeup and all, and then just understand that although I am not there, I'm very happy that you did it. But I don't care about anything else. Especially when we did the dumb thing of there's a member of Kong Noonan Scene's family on the crew. It's stupid. It's so stupid. The Star Trek Renegades, which was a fan project, was the only project where I saw that they did something cool with Khan. And it was his grand, kind of had a granddaughter that was in the future, and she was doing everything in her power to not have people know that she was a Khan. So it's like, okay, cool. Outside of that, it just, Khan was just a very special thing that came and went. Let it be.
All right, so let me go through these and get your opinions on them. We'll just do kind of a quick thing on it because I got all these images, and I think it might surprise people, some of the stuff on here, because obviously I think everybody knows the original series, but talk a little bit about what the original series is for you, why it might be a good entree point for people.
So the original series was my entry point to Star Trek. It's one of the first non-cartoon things that I remember watching as a kid. When I was a kid, we lived in the Bronx. My dad was relatively new in NYPD, and he worked. He came home like somewhere between like 11 and 12, and then the local affiliate WPAX WPX 11. Classic Star Trek, or just Star Trek at the time, was always on in the late hours after the honeymooners, and he would always come in, and I would always wake up, and we'd hang out for a little bit, watch a little bit of Star Trek, because he loves Captain Kirk, and that was like one of the early things that I remember doing with my dad, was we just bonded watching Star Trek. And there were certain episodes that he absolutely loves. He loves the Gorn episode. As I got older, he loves the episode where Kirk gets split in two, and he always says that he's the bad Kirk and I'm the good Kirk. Especially when he gets a little creepy around Ensign Rand, or Yeoman Rand. But I listen. This is it. This is the granddaddy of them all. This is the wagon train to the stars. It's high adventure, but it's also morality tales, and occasionally some high concept science fiction, thinking. But essentially, you have the quintessential strongman. James T. Kirk. He's competent. He's competent. He's thoughtful. He's duty driven, and he's also measured. People, I think the thing that they get wrong with Kirk and a lot of things is they, especially in the modern movies, they don't understand that Kirk is very measured and very by the book, and he only really breaks the rules twice and pays consequences for it. But but because he's always been a rule follower, when he breaks those rules and shows a little bit of defiance, it is important and becomes a defining moment to his character because he is a rule guy. Nimoy and DeForest Kelley, they are the yin to the yang to the characters. They ground Kirk. They're different aspects of the personality. And it's a fun dynamic to see the three of them. It's incredible when you see a cast that has the amount of chemistry that they do. And people always talk about the trio. It's really the Magnificent Four. Because Scotty is the fourth man.
Yes, and without him, the ship don't go.
Yes, yeah. So, James Doohan is incredible. If it wasn't for James Doohan, we would not have Klingon. Because he created the language. So it's like it's just they tackled things that they tackle things at a time that no one was willing to talk about. Frankly, the show was not going to get made. The studios didn't want it because Gene Roddenberry said, I wanted something positive. And they're like, no, what are you talking about? It's the future. It's got to be dystopian. And he's like, no, but I think we can do a little bit better. He tackled social issues, not through lecture, but through, giving you allegory and an alternative perspective. One of the things that's super enraging about Starfleet Academy, they had it was a member-berry alien, the half black, half white,
right?
And there's a female version of that floating around back. And I'm like, no, you dummy, you clearly didn't watch the episode. Because at no point in time in the episode do they go, we have a colony of survivors. The point is, these completely and totally indistinguishable from each other aliens, until you realize that his black is on the right and his black is on the left. They hate each other so much that they've wiped each other out, and that is their blind hatred of an insignificant appearance deviation that they have wiped themselves from existence, even at the end of the episode, despite everybody kind of going, well, what are you doing? What's the point of this?
This is stupid, guys. Knock it off.
Yeah, that's it. Listen, and this is the show that has done much. This is a show that has done incredible things for STEM. What they did for science and technology and the arts in general. I think this is why people get so heartbroken when we talk about the current state of modern Star Trek, is that there's nothing remotely inspirational about it. There's nothing there to inspire the next group of kids to be the next great scientist or the next great astronaut or the next great doctor. The animated series, is so cool on the face of it, because hey, you canceled my show early and I've got an idea to bring it back. And this is one of those shows where you get the entire original voice cast. You get it's like it picks up just from where it left off. Depending on who you ask, it may be canon. It might not be canon. I personally happen to think that it's canon.
One of the things I wanted to ask you is, do you think, this is probably a dumb question because I think I know the answer, but if you didn't get the animated series, did you get any other Trek?
No, I really don't. I think this was, well, no, yes and no is really the answer for it. You got the animated series, and the animated series did very well, which showed everybody that there is still a hunger for this show. I think it may have taken a little bit longer, or the studios may have been a little slow in the go. But this showed people that there was still enthusiasm for Star Trek in some form, in some form. So in that regard, I'm very grateful to the animated series. Now, we do have to thank Star Wars for coming along. And at the end of the day, guess what? George Lucas tried really hard to secure the rights to Star Trek for himself.
Did you know that I learned something that I didn't know about Star Wars recently?
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, when George was getting ready to do the prequels, he actually ended up running into William Shatner at a bar. And he was talking to William Shatner about the fact that he was going to be making the new Star Wars prequels. And Shatner pitched to him the idea of naming an alien species after him as kind of a little in-joke. And George actually intended to do so. And he was going to call them the Shatnerians. And they decided that probably didn't sound so good, so they changed it to the Nemoidians. Did you know that the Trade Federation were after Leonard Nimoy?
Well, I always forget they're called the Nemoidians. But that's awesome. Yeah, listen. Unfortunately, when your name sounds like the past tense of an unfortunate accident, yep. It's good,
Yeah, I think they made the right call there, but that was a thing I didn't know about, so that was kind of cool to learn. We could kind of glance on these others because I want to get to the movies. I think the movies will be fun to talk about, but I mean, this was my Trek. This was the Trek that I got hooked on.
This is the I think this is the formula perfected.
Not initially. The first couple seasons were a little rough.
Woof. Woof. There are some episodes in the first season. My favorite being the Wakanda Forever episode. Where it's but a lot of the first season is as terrible as it is. It's because it was they originally were going to do something called Star Trek Phase 2, and a lot of the TNG scripts were just held over Phase 2 scripts that were not updated for the time. They weren't updated for the time, and they were just it was as quick of a near polish as possible. It was like erase Captain Kirk and put in Picard, and just kind of run and gun.
Well, it took a while for the crew to gel too, which I think is a problem that Enterprise had. Honestly, I think a lot of the problems were Roddenberry, and eventually when Roddenberry kind of got edged out, I think things improved pretty quickly.
I like so one of the things that we almost got from Roddenberry that I think would have been funny but also a disaster is he wanted the Ferengi to have massive golden cod pieces.
Do you remember? It's like I think it was season 1. Some of the guys on the Enterprise were wearing skirts.
Yeah,
it was like Roddenberry. He had some funny ideas.
It's the future. No one cares. I don't know.
Then we got what I think at the time was controversial, but I think also came to be thought of as Star Trek Perfected.
Yeah, listen, I remember. God, dude, I remember remember when I didn't know that DS9 was debuting when I was watching it, because I'd kind of fallen out of I had fallen out of watching TNG on a regular basis and was doing anything where like it came on. For me, it aired on Saturday. It is Saturday at 7, and then it would replay. I think midnight on Sunday, and then I was finally kind of getting back into it. This is, I think, 7th grade. I'm finally getting back into it, and it ends, and then all of a sudden, there's a Star Trek movie comes on. It's Deep Space Nine, and Deep Space Nine. I think the pilot is brilliant. It has one of the best shots in Star Trek, where when Sisko's on the runabout and in the escape pod, and like it's his face, and his ship explodes in the background. I think it's one of the most powerful shots in all of Star Trek. It's such a.
You're talking about it, Wolf 359.
Yeah, and it's just such a juxtaposition to we meet Picard and he's just bright and vibrant, and Sisko is just broken and solemn and just not where you want to be. It was an adjustment, right? Like Star Trek's supposed to be about exploration, and I'm like, no, like this is what if you brought Deadwood to Star Trek. And then it took him a little bit to get there, but once he shaves his hair and starts going more hawk,
yep.
Because I think a lot of people don't know is Sisko was originally supposed to be a lot younger. They actually they had
how did that work with Jake?
The Jake character was also initially supposed to be a little bit younger too. So he was really supposed to be around Bashir's age.
Okay.
So when they started, which is why Kai Opaka was so important in the first season, because she was going to be Sisko's mentor.
That's a horrible mentor. Okay.
Yeah. No, not Kai Wynn, not Kai Wynn.
Oh, right. Sorry, got it mixed up.
So she's supposed to be his mentor, and then it couldn't quite work. And then they were like, well, let's age him up, and then they wanted James Earl Jones, and he was really very close to doing it, back at the last second, and they started scrambling, and it was almost Peter Capaldi, and like he's too similar to Patrick Stewart, so we can't go in that direction. And then someone was like, try Avery Brooks, and like he would never do this, and he did it. And then they realized, okay, well, Avery Brooks does not need a mentor character. And they hit actually just Alexander Sindig for the Sisko role, and they moved him back over, and then they aged up Jake just a little bit because Avery was a little bit older, which gave them a little more creative freedom with the character. And then you got it. And like I said, the second he shaves his head and gets a little more hawk, they finally make him a captain. And then when Worf walks into the promenade for the first time, the show is perfect. And I go, thank God it was Worf, because it was this close to being Data.
So we don't really need to talk about this one.
I love Voyager.
No, I said we didn't need to talk about it. We're good.
Enterprise, man. Enterprise was I think if Enterprise didn't come out, if Enterprise wasn't the show that came out right after Voyager, I think it would have been a little more received. But I think it would have been received a little bit better. People wanted them to go. People wanted the story of the Alpha Quadrant where it was to continue forward, outside of having to wait for next gen movies, because it started becoming clear that for some reason we weren't getting the other casts on the in these movies, which unfortunately we were supposed to, if the director didn't botch Nemesis so badly.
I do feel like Enterprise has gone through kind of an interesting reevaluation, or at least it feels that way to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Enterprise got beat up because people were not ready for prequels yet. Prequels were still relatively new. Again, people didn't really know how to process stuff. I like episode 1. I don't understand the hate episode 1 guy. I get the Jar Jar bit, but I go, in terms of a jump on point, I think it's a great jump on point for new fans and a great jump off point to tell the rest of the story. I'm very fond of episode 1.
It does feel to me like a fish out of water compared to the rest of Trek, but and it feels to me like the cast didn't quite gel the way that some of the others did.
Mhm.
But
They
I did like it, kind of.
mhm. They got Archer and Trip phenomenal chemistry. You could tell you really felt the friendship. Dr. Phlox, I think, was a great doctor. The T'Pol was supposed to be a fish out of water because she's a Vulcan, and then everybody else, they just kind of know what to do with them. Because you have what's the God? What's his name? Malcolm Hoshi, and God, what's the young kid's name? He was supposed to fill the Chekhov role of the young brash, but they just you have entire. I think you go like entire episodes where he doesn't have more than one line.
It's like I have to admit I have forgotten who that character even is. But it makes me think of Galaxy Quest. The kid.
No, that's what happens. Like he's just kind of there, and then I'd say so. In Enterprise finds its way in season 3, and then the writer's strike happens. And then, Les Moonves did not like Star Trek, is notorious for his hatred of Star Trek. It's one of the reasons to get rid of it. You can also, I think, what people also ignore too is that Star Trek was not a good fit for UPN.
Yep.
It was a top performer for the network, but the network was already dying. And it really should have been someplace else.
That's the other weird thing about Trek is that it has appeared on so many different networks. It has bounced around a lot.
Mm-hmm. What, like, people forget TNG and DS9 are technically syndicated shows. Voyager and Enterprise were the first two that were not. And again, I think it's just, if Enterprise had gone into syndication, I guarantee you would have gotten a full run. It would, or at least what was a full run at the time. I personally did not agree with the 7 seasons and out thing. I'm like, sometimes you got a story to tell, just tell the story. But I think Enterprise, by the time like people realized that this was a good show, they were like, we just got to get to our 100 episodes and we're getting out of here. Which is why we were supposed to get the Mirrorverse episode was supposed to show you what happened to Kirk's to William Shatner's Mirrorverse counterpart. Shatner was actually, he had agreed to be in it. They actually give him a lot of people forget, like, Shatner had been trying for a couple years to get onto Enterprise, and they had given him a lot of really stupid alternatives, like being on the show as they wanted Kirk's ancestor to be a cook on the bridge. He was like, why would I come back for that? And then Seth MacFarlane, who wound up getting to be in I think appeared in a couple episodes. He had been pitching for the longest time, hey, I know how to fix this show. I can write Star Trek. There's more to me than just the poop and fart jokes from Family Guy. And we saw what he did with the Orville. The Orville is the true successor to Star Trek, not Kurtzman Trek. But yeah, Enterprise. I really hope they do this United thing because Enterprise deserves to be wrapped up, and it gives them the ability to undo some things. The penultimate episode is amazing. In terms of the pace and where you're moving the story. And then the final episode, although they do lots of really interesting things, I think they make some mistakes out of haste. And then because it's really a TNG episode, it steals a lot of the show's thunder.
So these next ones I'm just going to bounce through because none of us want to talk about them.
No.
But here you go.
I don't count any of this garbage. Spock has a secret sister that listen, I get it. What did I call him? Sarek has a deep attraction for space bunnies, but he most certainly is not taking in a human child and having her be more Spock than Spock. Get the bleep out of here with that nonsense. Picard season 1 and 2, don't watch them. They're absolute garbage. rips off the end of Mass Effect and Bicentennial Man. Season 2 is you don't know how Q's powers work, but it was nice to see John Delancey doing his thing. And then season 3, if you watch it like it's a really long Trek movie, it's not a great Trek TV show season, but it's a better than decent Trek movie. I'll put it to you that way. This show, it giveth and it
This
taketh
one
away.
feels to me like it should have been good in concept. This is one that I actually would have wanted to succeed.
So I'll give Akiva Goldsman this. He did a lot of things very well to start. Although right at the box, they tried to turn January 6th into the impetus for World War III. And I'm like, I'm not watching this dumb show. And by virtue of I couldn't find the remote and went to the next episode, I was like, okay, fine. It's not that bad. The cast, the cast had chemistry. It's so unfortunate that what's his name? I can't think of the dude who plays Pike.
Anson Mount.
Thank you. Anson Mount is so charismatic and does such a good job as Pike, and plays Pike in a way that he is so different than Kirk that it makes the show really truly enjoyable. And
I never watched this, but did they ever get up to the menagerie?
Oh, they address it. So so when you get there, Pike has already been he has already dealt with the Telosians. And then something happens where he knows he's going to have the accident, which I thought was a neat little twist. Like he's living his life out knowing what's going to happen to him. And you're watching him kind of struggle with that. But they don't understand Vulcans at all. They don't understand how to write Vulcans. They do things that are just absolutely totally contradictory to the lore. Like as cute as the girl who played Nurse Chapel. Nurse Chapel's a hoe. I don't know why Uhura was even there. We've got someone who's related to Khan on the show. I thought the stuff they did with Dr. Malbenga was pretty interesting. They also forgot that Admiral April was supposed to be Gene Roddenberry. So they kind of race swap them. People got upset about that, but it is what it is. But then the show just falls off of the show fell off of a cliff. It got to season 3 and it just fell off of a cliff.
I heard that sound.
I'm currently potty training my son, and he has left more satisfying things in the toilet than this show.
No need to say any more. Here's where we get to the fun stuff, I think.
Oh, dude. I love the Star Trek movies. This movie, we get to see Captain Kirk be a Badmiral, because Kirk is the villain of the movie. It's not Feature, it's Kirk. Kirk is the villain of the movie. He is like, just, I want my ship. You don't get to be captain. I'm using every rule in my authority to be the captain of this ship that I do not know how to run. And then Dad from Seventh Heaven, gets a punk rock girlfriend and goes and lives in the stars. The end. But this is the most Star Trek movie. I always say this is the actual Star Trek movie.
We recently did this for the Genre Guys, and growing up, I did not like this movie at all. But watching it now with adult eyes, it's a way better movie than I thought it was. It does feel weird because it's such a slow start. It's such a slow start, and actually kind of a slow middle too. But everything looks so much different. It's like everything, the redesign of the ship itself, the uniforms, everything is dark. I mean, so much time has passed between the original series ending and how Dr. McCoy, when he arrives on the ship, looks like he just got out of a discotheque.
Yes.
It's kind of weird. But
DeForest Kelly always thought about how had the show gotten another season, like he's like, yeah, everybody forgets my character is divorced. They were gonna do an episode where McCoy's daughter comes onto the ship and starts striking up a friendship with the captain, and it puts a strain on their friendship for a little bit. I'm like, oh, that would have been fun. That would have been fun to see. But I just this movie so where Kirk is a jerk, and you don't know if you can trust Spock the entire first half of the movie. My friends and I used to make fun of the Spock has gone plaid scene where he's just floating through space.
I really admire this movie now because of, as you said, it is the Star Trekiest of the Star Trek movies. It's most like the original series. It's dealing with some big concepts. I love the idea of the V'ger probe becoming self-aware. Um, it's got some big ideas in it. I think it has some wobbles in the execution, but I have way more fondness for this now than I ever did when I was a kid. But that brings us here.
Listen, my father jokes with this. He goes, he was like, there were two movies that came when you were a little kid, where I thought you were going to stand at attention. He was like Star Trek 2. Every time Kirk popped on the screen, and G.I. Joe the movie, because G.I. Joe the movie has the most perfect opening credit sequence of any piece of entertainment ever. But this is just one of the greatest. A brilliant submarine movie. I don't think it gets enough non-Star Trek fan praise for what the story here is. It's Kirk as a character has a very fascinating arc, even when you just watch the original show. Like I said, he is someone who is bound by duty. He does not shirk away from danger. He has a very high sense of responsibility to his people. But like it's one of the like just the risk is our business speech. That's really like that's one of your first introductions to who he is as a character. So when you get to Star Trek 2, he is complaining about getting older. Like he gets glasses because he can't see. Who amongst us hasn't felt that sting? You find out that he cheated with the Kobayashi Maru, and it's like you start talking about consequences, unintended consequences, and never really truly facing certain kinds of consequences. And you see a hero who has always tried to do the right thing, but Starfleet unto itself is really bad about it. It's one of the things I loved about that I really actually enjoyed about Lower Decks was the concept of second contact. Because Starfleet may show up and they may think they solved your problem. We wrap this up in 45 minutes. Off to never see you again. And you're like, well, they had this problem for hundreds of years. We wrapped it up in 45. Don't you think anybody should follow up? Nah, they're good. And you find out, hey, sometimes there are unintended consequences for not following up like how you promised. And so when you look at Spacey, like when they first meet Khan, there is almost like it kind of tells you the dangers of nostalgia, right? Like they look at Khan like he is just this window into the past. They admire what he was able to accomplish from a historical perspective. And Spock has to be like, guys, this dude killed a lot of people. What are you doing? And I'm like, yeah, you're right. And then they give him one book too many, and he takes over the ship. So now you've got these intellectually equal. It's just the difference here is Kirk has the experience, Khan doesn't, and that's what it comes down to. It just came down to experience. Also, too, sacrifice. I mean, dude, like the Scotty loses a nephew, Kirk gets a son, but then loses another brother. And then he gets to Star Trek 3, and Kirk gets his brother back, but then he loses his son.
Yep.
And unfortunately, because we couldn't get Kirstie Alley, because her we introduced to Saavik, and he knows that Saavik is very different than Spock. She seems to be a little more willing to react emotionally. She's a little sharp tongued, and that's because she was intended to be half Romulan.
The one complaint that I have about the Wrath of Khan is that it strikes me that when you enter a system, you probably do a scan of that system. And it seems incomprehensible to me that they missed an entire planet and somehow mistook Ceti Alpha 5 and Ceti Alpha 6. That seems like a pretty big miss for a Starfleet crew. It's like, guys, have you seen that other planet? Were we in this neighborhood once before? I'm pretty sure there were 6 of them. But
this is Ceti Alpha 5. Like, oh. And then, like, wait. So, like, you saw the other planet, like, oh, that's Ceti Alpha 5. You weren't going to check it on how they were doing? You were just going to sneak it over here, like...
Cruise on by. Don't worry about those guys. I'm sure they're fine.
They probably don't need supplies. So I have a love-hate relationship with this movie. The one, this was not supposed to be a Klingon movie. It was supposed to be a Romulan movie. The studios love to interfere in Star Trek productions and just change it. So this is supposed to be Edward James Olmos, not Christopher Lloyd. I love the fact that Christopher Lloyd cannot wrap his head around talking to the communicator, so he is just screaming at everything that moves.
I'm glad you brought that up.
just screaming at everything. This was originally supposed to be a Romulan ship that they wound up giving to the Klingons. And I love the old school Star Trek writers because, like, well, we got to make it make sense. There was also supposed to be a really big political fallout. I think the Vulcans were initially supposed to be threatening either to leave the Federation or there was something with the Vulcans. The Vulcans were threatening to leave, and the Romulans were jockeying for power because of the creation of the Genesis device, because it was a strictly Starfleet initiative, and they kept it secret from the rest of the Federation. And it was supposed to be a really big problem. And then almost the Spock part of it all was really just kind of like hey, we need a reason to get the crew back on the ship because they're all technically retired. We got what we got. I think Robin Curtis does a really good job as Saavik. I was always sad that she didn't get to come back, at least for 5. I understand why she wasn't in 6, and I think it was a good call when we get there. Again, it's just I think it says one of the best scenes, the destruction of the Enterprise, from the get out of there to the watching it break up in the atmosphere. I think it's incredible. And then also it's the thing of consequences. You can't have it all. In order for Kirk to get his friend back, he has to sacrifice his ship, and then in turn has to sacrifice his son. And it's incredible to watch how this plays out. I think it's great that each crew member also gets a moment to shine. However brief it is, they all get a moment to shine.
I have problems with this movie.
I know. Hey, but you know what? I'll give them this. They can look at this movie and go, we saved the whales. This movie had such a drastic impact on the social awareness that they are actually credited with helping resuscitate the whale population and helping make whaling such a reviled act that hey, when the probe does come in a few hundred years from now, we're not going to have to worry about it.
Yeah, okay.
So people love to poop in this movie. I love this. Is one of my favorite movies. I think this movie was just rife with production drama. He had a strike. We couldn't afford ILM. There's an entire ending sequence that gets cut out of the movie that I keep hoping that someone just decides to CG in. There was also, they wanted to try to get Sean Connery, and he couldn't, so it's the God of Shakari. But I think the opening to this movie is amazing. You open up on this barren desert planet, and the guy's like, points a gun at someone and is like, "You're gonna kill me for this," and the guy goes, "It's all I have." I'm like, that is, how powerful is that? And even just his line of your pain runs deep, share it with me. I'm like, that, what a cool line.
I actually think this is a much better movie than I think it gets credit for. And the line that gets made fun of, "What does God need with a starship?" is actually a pretty darn good line, because it's like Kirk would be thinking that way. It's like, now just wait a minute. I have dealt with cosmic clouds and entities that speak with authority that are frauds. I don't think you're really God.
And what's fascinating is Roddenberry, as a rule, did not want anything that had anything to do with religion based in Star Trek, at least on the side of the humans. And Sharon was like, but this is a fun story to tell. It's pretty cool. How can we not tell this story? Fine. I think it was the producers who told Roddenberry, shut up and find a way to make it happen. And you got, again, I love that line. What does God do with the Star? And then McCoy, you don't ask the Almighty for his ID, Jim.
Yeah.
But this movie, you are fresh off of the movie trilogy. It's kind of like a brand new start for the series as a whole, and you see the characters at the top of their game. Like Uhura, Scotty, Sulu, Chekhov, they all get to shine. They all get to shine in their own ways. And then the Kirk Spock trio was it just
This movie also led to this movie.
Yes.
Which I think, honestly, in a way, it gives Wrath of Khan, I think, a run for its money. If you're gonna end the original crew, this is how you end the original crew. The movies with the original crew.
To me, this is I personally think this is better than Wrath of Khan. Yes, I don't think you get an ending story that is better than this. First of all, I love how this opens. Praxis gets destroyed. The Canadians like, "Oh, we got it under control. Don't worry about it." You get the surprise of seeing Sulu on his own ship. Yeoman Rand is back. I think that's one thing they did really well in the previous movies, was showing you the other characters. We got to see Dr. Chapel floating around. We got to see Rand kind of popping up around the spots, but now she's on the ship. Sulu's a captain. She's the commanding officer, the first in command. I mean, it was super cool. And then you get to the team meeting with the admirals and Starfleet Command. And when I get because Roddenberry also had a no conflict rule. Like everybody was supposed to always agree. No disagreement could venture longer than what was necessary. But I go what's brilliant about it is that you have two men who've known each other for so long, and Kirk is so mad at Spock that he's not understanding what Spock is trying to accomplish, because he can't get past his own biases. And then they have a conversation that two friends would have. And then it wraps up really quickly because Kirk is a man driven by duty. And then you get to the dinner scene, which I actually love. Guess who's coming to dinner? And then I love going back to the Christopher Plummer just screaming Shakespeare the entire time. Havoc!
And let's slip the dogs of war. He
I,
chews scenery like crazy.
I used to spin in my grandfather's office chair every time. I was like, I would just put my feet up and spin and yell, "Cry havoc!" because I was just that kid. The ice planet. Oh, I just that was about
Worf's grandfather. Yeah.
Yep. Kirk's like it's like it's everything you want. Like it's Cold War allegory. You're seeing these grizzled warriors have to come to the realization of, hey, like my entire life has been dedicated to fighting these people, and what else do I have to? I hate them. Can I forgive them? How do I forgive them? Complete with his own guilt, and then Spock makes a mistake because he trusts the wrong person. Kirk makes a mistake because he can't get past his own biases. And then they have the scene together where they realize we both made a mistake. And I get one of my favorite Kirk Spock moments. We're all human. I find that remark offensive. And then Christian Slater's there for no reason.
So we have other movies, but I don't think that we have time to get to them. And honestly, I think only two of them would be worth talking about anyway. So I'm going to skip that because there was one thing in particular I wanted to talk. I wanted to get your opinion on before we closed out the show for today. And actually, this is an ideal time to get to that super chat I've been holding. SFX Sabertooth Raptor for 10. Lorn Apollo, how would you attempt to save Trek? Thoughts on a Red October type Romulan War miniseries idea? Favorite Enterprise? Which era besides Kirk or Archer era would work if done well? Who showruns? That's a lot of questions. But it is kind of what I wanted to get to the core of tonight with you, because I know Starfleet Academy offended you on a level that is difficult to describe. And I want to know, what do you, Apollo, think needs to be done to get Trek back on track?
So I'm basing this off of the rumors that are floating around out there. I do think that the best way to move Trek forward is to go backwards a little bit, but very specifically to Enterprise. If you do this Enterprise United show, you need to tell fans it's okay to go home again. We do this, you wrap Enterprise, because Enterprise is the only one who did not get a proper send-off. So you let people, you give people a glimpse into the timeline that they haven't seen. You reestablish that, hey, this show is about boldly going. You wrap it up, and then you drop a show that's post Nemesis, whatever and keep it real time. Like we've got to be 20 something years removed from Star Trek Nemesis. It's a whole new crew, whole new adventure, whole new rules. I mean, because JJ and Kurtzman not understanding how political empires function. It's fine. That means that we have a whole new Alpha Quadrant. There's more to see.
You did say that it's the only show that didn't get a proper send-off. I do feel compelled to mention that they have struck the sets for Starfleet Academy before they have aired season 2. So, yeah.
I mean, listen, a proper send-off is sending it down the toilet and then chasing it with some Drano. So it's that show that it's I don't count anything Kurtzman era. When I'm talking about Star Trek ended for me the last episode of Enterprise, with the exception of again, I'm willing to hold my nose and go, hey, I enjoyed Picard season 3. I think Star Trek Prodigy had a lot of potential, and Lower Decks, I will go. There was a very clear love for the show. Once they realized how to balance the obnoxiousness that is Tawny Newsome, the show got very entertaining, and I actually really enjoyed the last season's story arc. They started pulling together all the random one episode all the single episode bad guys, especially former Starfleet personnel, and they brought them together for like a massive revenge plot. It was pretty cool. But this, I always, if you short treks were a lesson in how to do Star Trek as poorly as humanly possible. And everything else is just an unmitigated disaster. Discovery, I don't know how you go from, really sitting down and using scientific theory to devise warp drive to we go really fast on magic mushrooms. Because I'm like, isn't that just LSD, guys? And you're still sitting in your chair. You didn't go anywhere.
So, did you want to touch on any of the other questions that he had here, or?
Oh, yeah. So, in terms of, if we, I think the best thing to do is just go backwards, go forwards, and you have a whole new era that's untouched. We should be picking up, 20, 30 years after Picard. I don't think it necessarily needs to be on a new Enterprise, but we should be embracing the big time jump and just, it's time to just go new. You got to do something totally new. However, I do think that if a deep dive into the wilderness era, I think could be fun. The Enterprise C era. A lot of the books had the Enterprise C crew kind of in a very unique spot of they were more of an espionage crew, as they were very political. It's a very strange time. You've got the Klingons and the Romulans at each other's throats. Starfleet is trying really hard to make peace with the Romulans, but they can't get there yet. The Romulans are working really hard to bring about a lot of instability. So it's a fascinating time, and then I think if you finish it off with that battle where the Enterprise C sacrifices itself to save Kittimer, I think that's a really powerful way to you get it, and it's still a decent time jump to encounter at Farpoint. So you do have the ability to sneak in a couple of younger versions of your TNG era characters. And do certain things like have Captain Uhura teaching a young Picard, letting a young Picard pilot a spacecraft, and I would use that era to bring a lot of the stuff that's in beta canon to proper canon, because I think you do have to do a major drive to remind the fans it's okay to be a fan again. But yeah, showrunner wise, this one's hard for me. I would go with someone. I can't think of his name. Shoot, I had someone. I am brain farting the show too, but I would go with someone who. I would probably even potentially go with two showrunners. In all honesty, like a Berlanti Guggenheim kind of setup. I would go. Who was the showrunner for The Expanse?
I don't know. I didn't follow the show.
I would take something like The Expanse and something that has a little more procedural, and kind of format the show that way. Because I do think at least for the first couple of seasons, no matter what you do, it's got to be standalone episodes, and it's got to be about the adventure and the exploration. And then as you start to establish the characters and get a feel for who they are as people, then you can start doing a little more interconnected storytelling. But it's just it's just got to be fun. It's just got to be fun. And I do think, yes, too, there's just so much content out there that if streaming isn't going to go anywhere, no matter what it winds up being. So you've got to start seeking out different ways to tell these Star Trek stories. So I do think like an occasional, like Marina Sirtis said it great on whatever podcast she was. She's like, there's no studio on Earth that's going to have its main cast be a bunch of 70-somethings. But, maybe getting a bunch of 70-somethings together for, 3 or 4 episodes, that might be fun. So I think I think these mini series and little mini movies is something that should be explored because there's a lot of lore there. I just no reboots, no refreshes, and no returns to the TOS era without a unless there's something very specific that you want to do, because the TOS era, as far as I'm concerned, is perfectly fleshed out from the end of from the last episode in the original series to Undiscovered Country. I don't think there's anything you need to touch there. Actually, and then if you really need to revisit it, go watch Star Trek Continues, because I think that is the perfect continuation of Star Trek.
Agree. Next up, we've got England DG for 5 saying what they missed out on is doing Daredevil and She-Hulk as a funny take on Law and Order. Could work well as a TV show as well, or at least YouTube shorts.
You had a superhero show that didn't know enough about superheroes or lawyers to be good in any direction.
Yep. Snarky Distinct for $4.99. Game Place Raid. Say no to the Starfleet. We've got SFX Sabertooth Raptor for another 5. Enterprise episode Regeneration explains the missing colonies in the Next Generation neutral zone and 7 of 9's parents chasing the Borg before Q intros Enterprise D to the Borg. We've got Snarky for another $4.99. Fart Trick, Strange New Wonk. And he says that for another $1.99, I will be watching these through starting tonight. That's a heavy lift, but I hope you have fun. And Chief William Schweikert for 5. My suggestion to get back on track, look at the fan films.
Yep.
Fans donated lots of hard-earned dollars for those series. Axanar should be looked at.
I really wish that we lived in a world where Axanar could be finished, because it would also be nice to see Tony Todd one more time. I donated money to Axanar. I was all in. That was a beautiful project. Again, it's, and people just don't understand, like, fandom before Disney took over Star Wars. Fans were treated very differently. These brands were kept alive based off of the fans' passions, and the fans' desire to want to be creative, and to tell their own little stories and do fun things and get together. Especially the Star Trek fans, Star Wars fans are always great for brand new Jedis and cool fight sequences and things like the 501st. But Star Trek fans, man, they really went into it. They gave you really like well thought out presentations, and Anaxar had at the time was going to be something that would have really deeply embarrassed Paramount, especially with what we were getting out of Kurtzman. But to go back to that, actually, I always do forget, like, to go back to that period in time, which is something we really haven't seen, where the Klingon Federation War is raging and the Federation is losing, and to kind of see that the film where you get to the tipping point where it's now they're locked in a military stalemate, and then you go into the 5-year missions. I think that would have been very interesting.
Well, we're caught up on Super Chats, and that's pretty much all the time that we have for tonight, but I think it was fun. I'm kind of glad that we tackled Star Trek for a change, because all of you guys out in the chat, I can see, are super passionate about it, and I know everybody's been disappointed about what Kurtzman has done over the last several years. So here's hoping that we do get some kind of a course correction. I'm sure if something does come up that they announce at some point in the future, we'll be talking about it. And if you guys like this kind of discussion, let us know. We can revisit this and go more in depth on some of the other stuff that we didn't talk about tonight at some point. I know that Martin would love to get in on that conversation. I kind of feel bad that he wasn't here tonight for this, but we can do it again. Just let us know. In the meantime, on Friday, unless something unexpected comes up, we should be covering the next year in our cinema series, which will be 1982. So start getting your lists together, and we'll discuss that on Friday. Until then, everybody take care. We'll see you on the next one.
to school and work, waiting for some fun while my boss acts like a jerk. Pro show afternoons, midnight sketch can't come too soon. The afternoon and sketch can't come too soon. But at night I'm filled with dread. I know just what I'll do instead. Come on and follow me. It's time, you see, for Lorn and Apollo. Time to laugh and learn. Come feel the burn of what the fandom was. What random fun doesn't escape. Isn't it great? Late night with Lorn and Apollo.